Hi, welcome back to Fresh Faces New Ideas. My name is David. If you're new to the channel or you like the channel, please like and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas. Now, this is going to be the second part of the joint session speech. This is going to be, we just covered the first 100 days. We're going to cover, he's going to talk about his American Rescue Plan, or his American Family Plan, and his infrastructure and his jobs program into some of his family plan, both of which I think are good. They could go further. Although the centrist plan is, instead of putting a large but not adequate number of $2.25 trillion into the infrastructure and make things at least marginally better for a decent amount of people, we're going to cut that in half and hope that somewhere between 600 and a trillion is adequate when more is not. So that's what it is. So let's see what the president has to say.
History. We have to do more than just build back better. We have to build back better. We have to compete more strenuously than we have. Throughout our history, if you think about it, public investment in infrastructure has literally transformed America, our attitudes as well as our opportunities.
I want to say this a lot too, because it's worth mentioning. Public infrastructure is not one of those things where you have to budget it out. It should be. There's certain things that the government has to do because it's inefficient. It is a market loss for anyone else. So it's okay for the government to do it and take it as a market loss, because that's the point, is the overall outcome is better and the government can absorb those type of losses. So by not putting in more money into infrastructure, our bridges will continue to get worse, our roads are going to get worse, our tunnels are going to get worse, and it will cost more in the long run to do this. I want an actual argument to why piecemealing this over and over and over again and pushing the can down the road is a better solution than biting the bullet and just putting whatever it requires to fix it right now, so that in 3 years' time you're not worrying about it, but you're worrying about it in 100 years' time. I don't understand that. Are you so stupid that you, like, the argument against this is so frustrating. The longer you don't fix this, the worse it's going to get.
The Transcontinental Railroad, the interstate highways, united two oceans and brought a totally new age of progress to the United States of America. Universal public schools and college aid opened wide the doors of opportunity. Scientific breakthroughs took us to the moon. Now we're on Mars. Discovering vaccines gave us the internet, and so much more. These are investments we made together as one country, and investments that only the government was in a position to make.
That's exactly right. Only the government is in the position. Look, the people who say you want small government, yeah, all right, fine. But there's certain things that the government has to be big enough in order to do. It needs to have the military. It needs to have the monopoly on force. It needs to, in order to protect the citizens, it needs to have the wherewithal to control the tax revenue so that it can give aid to ways states can't. It needs to be the one to invest into the roads and things like that. It needs to help fund public education on all levels, because it is the entity designed that's large enough and has the reach to do that. It should not be used to legislatively affect people because you don't like their choices of their sexuality or what they do with their bodies.
Time and again, they propel us into the future. That's why I propose the American Jobs Plan, a once-in-a-generation investment in America itself.
It's a jobs plan, not an infrastructure plan. Joe Manchin, media.
This is the largest jobs plan since World War II. It creates jobs to upgrade our transportation infrastructure. Jobs modernizing our roads, bridges, highways. Jobs building ports and airports, rail corridors, transit lines. It's clean water. And today, up to 10 million homes in America and more than 400,000 schools and child care centers have pipes with lead in them, including drinking water. A clear and present danger to our children's health. American Jobs Plan creates jobs replacing 100% of the nation's lead pipes and service lines, so every American can drink clean water.
Look, I mean, I don't know if they're going to show it in this, but there was a lot of Republicans who weren't clapping. So apparently, pro clean drinking water and pro no lead pipes is a stance that Republicans are against. So they're for dirty drinking water and lead poisoning, because we've seen how that affects it. It's been affecting Flint for, God, it must be almost a decade at this point. And then it was affecting, I think it was Jacksonville didn't have water for a while, and somewhere in Jersey, and then we saw it in Texas. So I mean, it's not like this is a far-fetched idea that we need to fix this.
And the process will create thousands and thousands of good-paying jobs. It creates jobs connecting every American with high-speed internet, including 35% of the rural America that's still.
This is why the argument, what people generally consider infrastructure. The idea of infrastructure changes. Broadband should be controlled by the government because it is something that needs to be reached to every American. It is impossible to function in a business without access to the internet. We saw it most definitely during this pandemic, where people were from home and people with poor broadband had to scramble to figure it out. And you know who benefits most from getting these better broadbands? Rural red states. They're the ones who benefit most. So people in Kentucky, think about it. Why is your infrastructure not better? Because your representatives don't want it to be better.
Doesn't have it. It's going to help our kids and our businesses succeed in the 21st century economy. And I'm asking the Vice President to lead this effort, if she would, because I know it will get done. Creates jobs, building a modern power grid. Our grids are vulnerable to storms, hacks, catastrophic failures, with tragic results, as we saw in Texas and elsewhere during the winter storms.
Keep in mind, 200 people died in Texas because they froze to death. And I don't know if they'll show this, but Ted Cruz fell asleep during this. Ted Cruz also ran away to Cancun, and then he came back to do a photo op, and then went right down to Florida for CPAC. So it was not green power that failed Texas. It was their lawmakers in their energy grid. And it's the same thing with California. When they have their blackouts, it's because PG&E doesn't secure their landlines underground, because it's more efficient for them to pay whatever the fines is for the damage that they do versus them actually making sure their infrastructure is correct. And that's something we have to change.
The American Jobs Plan will create jobs that lay thousands of miles of transmission lines needed to build a resilient and fully clean grid. We can do that. Look, the American Jobs Plan will help millions of people get back to their jobs and back to their careers. 2 million women have dropped out of the workforce during this pandemic. 2 million. And too often because they couldn't get the care they needed to care for their child or care for an elderly parent who needs help. 800,000 families are on the Medicare waiting list right now to get home care for their aging parent or loved one with disability. If you think it's not important, check out in your own district, Democrat or Republican. Democrat or Republican voters. Their great concern, almost as much as their children, is taking care of an elderly loved one.
And we have a terrible system for that. The I Really Care movie is frightening look at the elder care. But yeah, we do not have a good elder care system. And expanding Medicare so that people can, at a younger age, take care of their older parents because they qualify in order to pay for that service would not only put people in jobs, but it would allow people to stay in their jobs. I wouldn't have to leave if I had a job where I was going to work every day. I wouldn't have to leave said job because I had to take care of my elderly parents. It's these type of things that have trickle-down effects. This is an actual trickle-down effect. If you help people at the top, it trickles out into their jobs and stuff.
Who can't be left alone. Medicaid contemplated it, but this plan is going to help those families and create jobs for our caregivers with better wages and better benefits, continuing a cycle of growth. For too long, we've failed to use the most important word when it comes to meeting the climate crisis: jobs. 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 For me, when I think climate change, I think jobs. The American Jobs Plan will put engineers and construction workers to work building more energy efficient buildings and homes.
Keep in mind, the response to this is socialism. Socialism. They're coming for your cows. They're coming for your meat. They're going to give you Kamala Harris's book.
IBEW members installing 500,000 charging stations along our highways so we can own.
Frack more.
So we can own the electric car market. Farmers planting cover crops so they can reduce the carbon dioxide in the air and get paid for doing it. Look, think about it. There is simply no reason why the blades for wind turbines can't be built in Pittsburgh instead of Beijing.
They give you cancer, that's why. They kill all the birds. They're really ugly. They freeze, and that's why they don't work.
No reason.
Keep everything I said was sarcastic or stupid from Trump. Look, this is a simple sell. Do you want Americans to have the green energy that is going to be necessary for the future? Or do you want to focus on dying industries? That the industries know they're dying. Are you part of the solution or are you part of the problem? Do you want America to lead or do you want us to be beholden to other countries?
None. No reason. So, folks, there's no reason why American workers can't lead the world in the production of electric vehicles and batteries. I mean, there is no reason. We have this capacity. We're the brightest, best trained people in the world. The American Jobs Plan is going to create millions of good-paying jobs Americans can raise a family on. As my dad would then say, with a little breathing room.
Keep in mind, before the pandemic, I think it was like 70% of Americans couldn't afford a surprise $400 shock, a surprise $400 bill. That would have just bankrupted them. And that was the economy they were touting as so amazing.
All the investments in the American Job Plan will be guided by one principle: buy American. Buy American. And I might note parenthetically, that does not violate any trade agreement. It's been the law since the 30s. Buy American. American tax dollars are going to be used to buy American products made in America to create American jobs. That's the way it's supposed to be, and it will be in this administration.
No, the way it's supposed to be is we give billions of dollars to Foxconn, and then they can build like 10 jobs in a facility like 17 years later and not have to pay any taxes on any of it. And then we can poison the world with the Keystone XL pipeline that would make 50 jobs, but if we cancel it, it's the end of the fucking world.
And I made it clear to all my cabinet people, their ability to give exemptions has been strenuously limited. It will be American products. Now, I know some of you at home are wondering whether these jobs are for you. So many of you, so many of the folks I grew up with, feel left behind, forgotten, in an economy that's so rapidly changing. It's frightening. I want to speak directly to you because you think about it. That's what people are most worried about. Can I fit in? Independent experts estimate the American Jobs Plan will add millions of jobs and trillions of dollars to economic growth in the years to come. It is
Socialism.
It is an 8-year program. These are good-paying jobs that can't be outsourced. Nearly 90% of the infrastructure jobs created in an American Jobs Plan do not require a college degree. 75% don't require an associate's degree. The American Jobs Plan is a blue-collar blueprint to build America. That's what it is. And it recognizes something I've always said in this chamber and the other. Good guys and women on Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
Joe Biden hates rich people. Confirmed. Remember that story?
So that's why I'm calling on Congress.
Okay, what he's about to say is going to sound really great, and I remember getting really hyped up when I was watching this, but I'm going to have to let you down after he says it.
To pass Protect the Right to Organize Act, the PRO Act, and send it to my desk so we can support the right to unionize. And by the way, while you're thinking about sending things to my desk, let's raise the minimum wage to $15.
Now, let's go to both of these. One, both of these bills are dead on arrival unless you do something about the filibuster. And Joe Manchin is aggressively against the filibuster. He's aggressively against any piece of legislation that would really help Americans. He wants to make it shittier or not pass it at all. He actively said that the John Lewis Voting Rights Act would make it more likely that we would have a insurrection again because people already don't trust elections. But look, the $15 minimum wage, I covered the story yesterday. He made it $15 minimum wage for federal contract workers. They could have done it in the American Rescue Plan. They could have overruled the parliamentarian to get that done. He could have gotten the representatives in line to get them to do it. But look, when he says $15 minimum wage, keep that bet. When Kristen Sinema or Joe Manchin propose a $12 or $11 minimum wage, which in either case would be less than what Kristen Sinema's current constituents make for minimum wage, get rid of it. Come out against it. You want these things? Pass them. Argue for them. Change the filibuster.
No one working 40 hours a week. No one working 40 hours a week should live below the poverty line. We need to ensure greater equity and opportunity for women. And while we're doing this, let's get the Paycheck Fairness Act to my desk as well. Equal pay. It's been much too long. And if you wonder whether it's too long, look behind me. And finally, American Jobs Plan will be the biggest increase in non-defense research and development on record. We'll see more technological change, and some of you know more about this than I do. We'll see more technological change in the next 10 years than we saw in the last 50. That's how rapidly artificial intelligence and so much more is changing. And we're falling behind the competition with the rest of the world. Decades ago, we used to invest 2% of our gross domestic product in America, 2% of our gross domestic product in research and development. Today, Mr. Secretary, that's less than 1%.
That's because all the socialists and the Marxists are in charge of all the research at the schools, and they're making everyone communist, and that's why we don't support that stuff.
China and other countries are closing in fast. We have to develop and dominate the products and technologies of the future. Advanced batteries, biotechnology, computer chips, clean energy. The Secretary of Defense can tell you, and those of you who work in national security issues know, the Defense Department has an agency called DARPA. the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. The people who set up before I came here, and that's been a long time ago.
He's referring to when he was in Congress, not before he was president. So it's not referring to Trump.
Breakthroughs that enhance our national security. That's their only job. And it's a semi-separate agency. It's under the Defense Department. It's led to everything from the discovery of the internet to GPS and so much more that's enhanced our security. The National Institute of Health, the NIH, I believe, should create a similar advanced research projects agency for health. And here's what it would do. It would have a singular purpose: to develop breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, and cancer. I'll still never forget when we passed the cancer proposal last year as vice president. Almost $9 million going to NIH. And they've excused the point of personal privilege. I'll never forget you standing, Mitch, and saying, "Name it after my deceased son." It meant a lot. But so many of us have deceased sons, daughters, and relatives who died of cancer. I can think of no more worthy investment. I know of nothing that is more bipartisan. So let's end cancer as we know it. It's within our power. It's within our power to do it. Investments in jobs and infrastructure like the ones we're talking about have often had bipartisan support in the past. Vice President Harris and I met regularly in the Oval Office with Democrats and Republicans and discussed the jobs plan. And I applaud a group of Republican senators who just put forward their own proposal. So let's get to work. I wanted to lay out before the Congress my plan before we got into the deep discussions. I'd like to meet with those who have ideas that are different, they think are better. I welcome those ideas. But the rest of the world is not waiting for us. I just want to be clear. From my perspective, doing nothing is not an option. Look, we can't be so busy competing with one another that we forget the competition that we have with the rest of the world.
All right, we're going to pause this here. So what do we do? Look, I think the American Jobs Plan is a good bill. I wish it went further. I don't want it to shrink. I think it is a no-brainer push, and I think it is a very easy sell to the American people. I think the true problem is Joe Manchin and people like Joe Manchin. Don't worry about what the Republicans are saying. They're going to be disingenuous, and if you want to play around with them, let him play around with them for a little. But give him a timeline. Say, okay, Joe, you have X amount of time. You have a month. Otherwise, we have to go to reconciliation. And then we're going to, because we have a lot of other things to do. And if you can't come to a deal, then we need to start talking about filibuster reform, because we can't do this over and over again. They're not serious about giving us what we need. They're not serious about helping the American people. So please, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.